Hello, all you lovely people. It's Bart Johnson here, and once again, it is Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, which means we are live. If you were unaware that that's the case on this channel, make sure you go ahead and do like that thing just said and subscribe, and you won't have to remember that. If you click that notification bell, you'll be here every time that we go live. But it's Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. But anyway, guys, sorry to start the stream with a subscribe plug right away, but you know, saw the opportunity and went for it. Today we're going to have a little bit of fun. We're going to kind of talk about cameras and camera specs, but not about the cameras that exist. We're going to try and figure out what we want in our perfect camera, if such a thing could ever exist. Now we're going to keep it within reason. We're not going to go crazy, and we're not going to say like, oh, you know, I want 12K, 100,000 frames per second for under $1,000. Let's keep it in the realm of possibility here, people. I mean, that could be possible, but I don't think within any of our lifetimes. You know, maybe that'll be way in the future, but who knows? We're going to talk about what would be our perfect camera right now, our ideal dream camera, and we're going to sort of just go over the different specs of cameras and figure out what exactly really matters to us. And the interesting thing about this is I know it's going to be different for everybody depending on the kind of work you do and what you really need in a camera. You know, do you need a larger sensor? Do you need raw recording? Do you need this, that, and the other? So I'll be interested to hear from you guys as well along the way as to what things you actually want and need and prioritize when looking at cameras. And we're going to have our lovely chat right up here so that you guys can interact today and let me know. We already have Shiz in the house. Good to see you as always, my man. If you are here in the chat joining live, please say hello. Let me know where you're tuning in from. And of course, as we go along here, this is going to be a very interactive stream. So I hope we get, you know, a decent amount of people in here. If we don't, that's okay. It's still fun to hang out and speculate. But I've got a few polls that I want to share with you guys. We're going to try something new today and see live, let you guys who are here in the chat kind of give me your feedback and let me know what you think about these specific things. As opposed to flooding the chat with all the things that sometimes I could possibly miss, I figured I'd try something new out. So we're really just kind of going to hang out today. And I do want to say that we're going to get a little serious here for just 1 second. You know, there's a lot of negative things happening in the world right now, especially, you know, right now in the United States. You know, it's 2020 just seems to be kicking all of our butts. You know, we're still not clear of this coronavirus pandemic, which caused tensions between citizens and government. And then we have all sorts of stuff happening here in the United States and cities across the country, even just down the road from me here in Washington, D.C., of course, a big epicenter. While I'm not political at all, and definitely not going to get political, you know, things that are happening are scary and sometimes violent and could affect our lives and will affect our lives. But I have this feeling always that the world is not ending, the world is just changing. And change inevitably ends up being good. You know, everything seems to balance out in the end, and you know, I agree that there are some problems that are being addressed. But anyway, I don't want to dive too deep into this. I know everybody's swamped with this kind of news through social media and whatever. No matter where you are in the world, I'm sure you're watching what's happening, and you've got your own stuff happening at home. But you know, with all that sort of negative, scary stuff out there, I thought let's have a little fun. Let's daydream a bit if we can, you know, and dream of camera tech and geek out over that as opposed to worrying so much about all this crazy news and all that. So that's my thing out of the way right there. That's as political as I will ever get, even in real life, not even just on the internet. But so there's that. So let's have a little fun today. Let's hang out and just, you know, geek out a little bit. So I see we've got Jason in here saying hello from London. Good to see you, Jason. Always good to have you in the chat. I know you were here last week as well. That was great. So as you guys pop in, please go ahead and join in the chat, and we'll see your comments here on the screen. But I did want to start off, I said today is going to be a very interactive stream. So actually yesterday, admittedly I should have done this maybe a week ago, but the idea didn't occur to me until last night. Yesterday I put a post on my YouTube channel here and it was a poll asking you sort of what you prioritize when you're looking at new cameras. And so we got a couple of votes in there. That's fine. I wasn't expecting it to be full of like thousands of votes overnight or anything like that. But I want to take a look at that and see what some of you guys said. And if you haven't voted in this, please feel free. It's in the community tab. And I actually have a link down in the description below. I'm not going to take this down, so we're going to let this thing just kind of run over time and see how those numbers change up. But here we go. Let's go over to it. So here it is. My question was, what specs matter the most to you when considering a new camera? And I put just a few major options. It only let me put so many choices here on YouTube. But I put down resolution, sensor size, high frame rates, raw recording, and ergonomics. And we got some interesting results here. Sensor size and high frame rates actually were the least that people were interested in, which really surprised me because a lot of times sensor size is at the top of the list for me. But resolution was a big one, and of course ergonomics was a big one as well. Now I know with these 5 categories, it kind of it kind of pigeonholes it. There's obviously so many more factors to a camera that you think of as well, that you consider. But those are just like the big sort of lumped categories that came to mind that I put in there. And I did say in the comments on that poll, if there is anything else that I didn't mention, please share that as well, and share that in here too if you're in the chat, and also in the comments down below, like what matters most to you, especially if it's not one of those things that I listed there. I see Shiz already has a comment in there. He says he's real specific. Look at this. He's got it figured out. I want a G9 body with GH5S features and specs, but of course keeping IBIS, in-body image stabilization, Sony autofocus, Blackmagic redesigned menus with ProRes RAW, B-RAW, and all that good stuff. That's pretty much it already. Wow, so he has created a Franken camera, and that's actually pretty cool. You actually went and got specific cameras that exist and picked the parts that you want from each one. That's really cool. So yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about RAW, because that was one of the things I mentioned in there. I didn't mention IBIS, but yeah, that's becoming a big thing these days. That can be a deal breaker for some people. That built-in stabilization of that sensor. And luckily, we are seeing more of it. But yeah, man, you've got quite a camera figured out there. So let me ask you. You've mentioned a few different companies there. You've got Panasonic with the G9 and the GH5S. You've got some Sony autofocusing there. You got some Blackmagic, and then you've got some Apple ProRes RAW. So who would you like to be the actual manufacturer of this camera? Just a thought, Not that manufacturer is a way that we decide what cameras we buy, because I mean, I'm all over the place. You guys know I've been loving my Z-Cam. I got Blackmagics back there. I'm shooting on a Panasonic right now. I have a GH5. I have Canon cameras. Like, I am by no means fixated on one brand. So brand really doesn't matter that much to me, as specs do and stuff like that. Trevor's saying dynamic range is important to me. I can work around the other things. Dynamic range, that's a great one that I didn't put in there. So yeah, dynamic range could be something. Low light performance could be something. There's so many. YouTube only let me put 5. But keep these things coming, because those are all great things that you prioritize. And try and let me know why also, Trevor. So why dynamic range for you? What kind of work do you do that dynamic range is the supreme for you there? Let's see here. Jason is loving Shiz's idea there for that Franken camera. I like it too. That's pretty good, man. Casey camera conspiracies. Why don't you do it? All right. And Trevor's got a simple one. He just says, I want the Panasonic S1H with phase detect. So the Panasonic S1H for all its specs, but improved autofocus. I could see that. And Shiz is saying he wants Panasonic to make it, of course. They've been his go-to since the GH2, maybe a GH6 will be a Micro Four Thirds Canon R5. A lot of people are wondering about what Panasonic will do next, and of course, people have been, there's no word on it, but we know eventually someday there will be a GH6, but people are like, we want one, we want one, we want one. That GH series is pretty good. The GH5 was the first one that I dove into. And actually, admittedly, I was hesitant because I was definitely a sensor snob. I liked everything about the GH5, but I had never shot on a Micro Four Thirds camera. I have lenses that are all capable of covering full frame, even though I was shooting, I think my only full frame camera was the 5D Mark III at that time, but the Ursa Mini that I was using as my primary, was a Super 35 sensor. But I was really, it was a push for me to get myself to go to a Micro Four Thirds sensor. And to tell you what, I speed boosted it to my lenses, and I was pretty happy, pretty comparable. I still have my GH5, still gets some use, and I did get another Micro Four Thirds camera in the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. So I admittedly was a sensor snob, and it pulled up there. So let's see here. We got Danny Grizzle in here. Good to see you. I'm wanting a Canon C500 Mark II. Because I'm getting old, I need autofocus. I hear you on that. I'm stubborn about that, and I've always been a manual focus guy, but it does get trickier and trickier, and I've noticed my monitors that I buy seem to get larger and larger, so I can really see what I'm doing. Or they at least allow me to pinch in. But anyway, you were saying, and it's time to work on some passion projects. Awesome. The new C500 is the best I can hope for. So you've got your eyes on an existing camera, and obviously you're looking at the high-end cinema line, cinema body style, as opposed to some smaller cameras like I'm shooting on a mirrorless camera here. So C500 Mark II, yeah, you should be able to. I haven't checked the prices on those lately, but it's definitely a good camera. The high end of the Cinema EOS lines have always been good cameras. I noticed during my stream last week that I was clearing my throat a lot. I really apologize for that, guys. Like that. It's got to be something with the change in the weather and everything that's going on here, allergies or something, but I just keep seeming to have a little tickle in my throat that I keep instinctively clearing. So I am sorry about that ahead of time. I've got some water to try and combat it because I ran out of my iced tea. We need to go out and try and find some and stockpile again. But anyway, I want to try real quick. Actually, let me answer Trevor's question here because he's answering something I asked him. I need the ability to pull details from whatever part of the frame I want. I can't pull data from nothing. One stop of dynamic range can be the difference between data and just noise. Interesting. All right. So yeah, you're going to be punching in and pulling stuff from any part of the frame. And you're right. One extra stop into those shadows or into those highlights, if they are at the extreme end, like you said, it's going to be the difference between is there data there or isn't there. So yeah, very, very obvious there why dynamic range is the thing that you look for the most. Let me pull something up here. I want to try this out with you guys since we've got a couple people hanging out in here. Let's see, which one should we do right now? We were kind of talking about, well, actually, we're just kind of all over the place. But I've got a series of, let's do this one. So I've got a series of polls that I put together that I want you guys to try and do live here. So here's the first one. Since I was kind of talking a little bit about sensor sizes and how I used to be a sensor snob and was really Super 35 or full frame or bust, I want to show you guys one of these polls that I put together. So this is a poll that you guys should be able to do live here. And it is, what sensor size do you prefer? So you'll get to pick one, but I've got Micro Four Thirds, Super 35, full frame, or large format. Large format really being anything larger than full frame. So I'm going to copy this link, and let's see here if I can paste this sucker in the chat. There we go. So let's see if that came up for us. There we go. All right, so there it is. It is in the chat right there. You guys who are here live should be able to click on that and go in and vote on that right now. And I should be able to pull up our results right here. So if you guys didn't see that, I just posted this poll right here for us. What sensor size do you prefer? What am I doing? What sensor size do you prefer? Micro Four Thirds, Super 35, full frame, large format. But yeah, let's see what you guys say about that, and we'll talk a little bit in here while you guys are taking that poll. Aram's in here, says, "Hey Bart, hey, good to see you, man." He says he voted. Perfect. Tim Nye, what do you think the best affordable EF cinema lenses are right now? Ooh, best affordable. Well, it depends what you mean by affordable for the lenses. I mean, you've got stuff like the Zines, but the Zines are kind of just rehoused Rokinons. You know, just the glass optics really isn't necessarily the greatest. And so at that point, you might as well get just the Rokinon Cine DS line, which you save a lot of money and it's really optically the same. I'm going to go ahead and refresh our results on here. Look at that. We've got a couple of people in here. Interesting results, I got to say, coming up right away. So here we go. We've got some poll results coming in here. Look at this. Full frame in the lead. Interesting. I would not have thought that. So, you know, we've got 42.86% right now saying full frame. We've got Micro Four Thirds and Super 35 tied, and I kind of expected that large format. None of us are really going for large format, especially for video. You know, there are a few high-end cameras out there that have it, but really it's not in our common language there. Let's go to refresh our results again. Oh, and we've got a Super 35 pulling ahead now. So there we go. Actually, they shifted a little bit. So okay, interesting. So I'll keep tabs on this, and we'll keep coming back. But this is interesting to see what you guys live here in the chat think. So Micro Four Thirds and full frame above Micro Four Thirds, or sorry, Super 35 and full frame above Micro Four Thirds at the moment. That is interesting because I know there's a lot of love out there for Super 35. But yeah, oh my goodness, Rob, I didn't miss it there. Some fancy plaque money. Thank you, Rob. Good to see Rob always in here with the super chats. That's fantastic. And what Rob is talking about, I haven't actually made this official yet, Rob. So I guess you're getting me in there for it. As you guys may know, I'm rebuilding my studio after we had a fire. You know, it was in the basement of my house and it caught on fire, and it's been months. This was back in November. This house that I'm in right now is actually a rental, and we are in the process of rebuilding the house, rebuilding the studio. I actually have a series that you can find on my channel where I'm taking you through all the steps of doing that. But we've said that I'm going to take this money. Any money that comes in through donations via Super Chat are going to go into the studio, because there is a lot of stuff that we're purchasing extra that's not covered by insurance to get that stuff going. And I have said that if you do donate, I will be keeping track, and I will put a plaque on the wall in the new studio with the names of all the people who have donated. Now, don't feel that you're obligated to donate, okay? You don't have to do this. But if you do, that's something that I've been looking at putting together. Just something kind of fun. So, but whoa, we've got chat going through here. So voted done. Jason, love the results. We're going to check on those results here in just a second too, again, to see where we are. Trevor saying Super 35 used to be strictly full frame, but with improvements in low light and lenses, I can work with just about anything. It's true. Super 35, you know, Super 35 was really the standard for video or like cinema cameras for the longest time. Like there really weren't many full frame. Full frame was pretty much a stills format, but now we've seen, you know, it coming to cinema cameras and lately to you know, obviously DSLRs, but mirrorless video cameras, and so full frame is becoming a lot more commonplace than it really used to be. Obviously, the 5D Mark II coming in as a full frame camera with the capability of video was pretty cool. Oh my goodness, we're going insane in the chat here. I gotta get caught up. You guys are killing me here. Let's see here. Lens selection for full frame is still too limited for me. Yeah, so full frame, you have to have full frame lenses, obviously. Or if you have full frame lenses, you can cover any sensor smaller than that, or you can speed boost to it. I don't know why I went to this. This is a full frame sensor camera. Aram in here with a donation. Thank you very much. $2.99. I appreciate it. Do you ever shoot with anamorphic lens adapters with Zcam? I have not yet. There's my little fancy thing that came up. Awesome. Wanted to make sure those are still working. I have not yet because mine is a full frame Zcam, so it's the f6. So what am I talking about? I was thinking speed boosters. Anamorphic lens adapters, no, I have not. And I do want to try and find something that will work. It's just difficult for the lenses that I have because of their size, and because they're covering a full frame sensor. A lot of the anamorphic adapters that you put on the front of a lens requires the lens to physically be smaller for the thread diameter to put it on the front. And the fact of the matter is that those lenses, made for full frame coverage, are larger just because of physics, and the optics are bigger. So I have not, but I am actually working with some stuff that can give you kind of some of the effects of anamorphic. And actually I have a filter in right here. It's not an anamorphic adapter, but it does give you some interesting stuff. I can't say much about it, but there is a video about it coming on the channel within a couple of weeks. But yeah, long answer to a short question there. No, I have not messed with anamorphic lenses or adapters with the Z-Cam, but I would absolutely love to. I love anamorphic. It's just super expensive. Let's see here. Shiz coming in with a donation. Awesome, man. And I love the little thumbs up guy with the animation. There we go. Boom. I can never get that right which side it's on. Awesome. Fantastic. You guys are the greatest. But let's, oh man, I'm gonna have to get you. You guys are all getting on the plaque. I'm gonna have to make sure I get your, I'm gonna have to get your preferred name, Shiz there. You know, you've had so many. Is it Shiz that needs to be? We'll figure it out. Shiz is asking some questions in here. I do want to get in here. I love Micro Four Thirds as the mount, but APS-C as the sensor size. Of course, the Super 35 was a historic highlight for video. Absolutely true. It says the JVC LS300 did it right. That was a very interesting camera with that mount, but then you could select which size of the frame. It was a crazy interesting camera. It was almost a Franken camera all of its own, but that was fantastic. But yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, Micro Four Thirds, you want to keep in mind that Micro Four Thirds can be a mount or a sensor size, or it can be both, obviously. But there are Micro Four Thirds mount lenses that can cover larger, like Super 35 sensors, which is why some of these Z-Cams that are Micro Four Thirds or that are Super 35 I'll have an option for a Micro Four Thirds mount on them. People were scratching their heads like, well, when you get vignetting, it depends on the lens that you use. So there's a lot of stuff there. Let's see here. I want to keep moving along on this, but we're having fun. I'm going to refresh our results. Okay, I think we have our final results in here for, because they haven't shifted. So for what sensor size do you prefer? It looks like Super 35 is edging it out. Full frame coming in second, which is a little surprising to me. And Micro Four Thirds down there. Obviously, all of them fantastic options. Large format appears to be for none of us. Oh, shiz, I just saw your message. I'll approve it in there. Then a shizzle the whizzle. Yeah, I'll see if I can fit that on on the plaque in the studio, my man. All right, but these are our results on this particular thing. Don't worry, I see you guys in the chat. We'll keep going along, but I'm liking this poll, and so I want to go to another one here, and it's sort of tied in with sensor size. I want to see, since a lot of people said resolution was a very important thing, I want to know, what resolution would your perfect camera shoot at? And so I've got a couple options in here. 1080p, fine by me. I need 4K. 6K is the way. 8K or larger, because I love data. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to pop this into the chat so that you guys can go ahead and start voting on that one there. All right. This is fun doing the little live interactions. I know we always get live interactions because we're always talking, but I thought these polls would be kind of cool. So I'll give you guys a couple minutes to go ahead. Link is there in the chat for you guys to go on in there. Shiz is saying another one. Oh, Shiz, I've got a few of them, man. Like I got this idea to do this, and I was like, I'm gonna run with it. But yeah, Rob's saying, wow, I forgot JVC was a company. JVC. They are a company. They do have some stuff. And that LS300 was a very odd camera. I feel like overlooked by a lot of people. But it has a lot of interesting, that camera had some really interesting capabilities. Okay, back in the chat, Shiz said, with like Nikon Z mount camera with IBIS, Super 35 sensor, and actually some good features. Interesting, Nikon Z mount. You know, I didn't put lens mount in, but again, you know, that's one of those big features that obviously is going to dictate what you want in a camera. Either it's because of existing lenses that you have or the ecosystem you're going into, you know, or flexibility, like something like an E mount where you can adapt almost anything to it, or a Micro Four Thirds where you can adapt almost everything to it. It's, you know, lens mount is definitely something to keep in mind, and that's going to be dependent upon each particular person. Maybe the, like I said, the lens ecosystem that you have set up and all of that. Anamorphic, talking a bit about anamorphic modes. Rob saying APS-C is a poor person version of Super 35. APS-C and Super 35 are kind of almost interchangeable terms. Not necessarily, because there is still fluctuation in like what the actual physical size of the sensors. These terms are like, you know, bins that you throw these sensors into. They're not actually a strict set of rules for like what their physical dimensions have to be. I wish they were a little bit more standardized, but you know, they sort of fit into these generalized boxes. You know, like the Pocket 6K from Blackmagic is a Super 35 sensor, but it's actually smaller than most Super 35 sensors we've ever had before in other cameras. But still, technically, I guess you can fit it into that category of Super 35. It is bigger than Micro Four Thirds, but it's just not as big as most Super 35s. So really interesting. Let me take a look at these resolution results. All right, we've got a few votes coming in, and let's go take a peek at that. All right, so they're starting to come in. We got a few people voting here. Looks like 4K is in the lead, so you need 4K. 1080p and 6K is the way are coming in evenly down below. That's interesting. Yeah, you know, it's, you know, I deliver a lot, actually majority of the time, in 1080p, but I do prefer to shoot in nothing less than 4K. And while I do now have two 6K cameras, I actually usually shoot them in 4K resolution, just because I don't necessarily need all of that crazy data and stuff. Sometimes I do on the Zcam shoot in 6K ProRes, just because right now I'm like, that's cool, and I'll shrink it down. But yeah, for me particularly, I think 4K is a must, and it is pretty much become standard. That's just the way tech goes. You know, you don't find a lot of cameras that are coming out now that don't have that. Whether you utilize that or not, usually if it's capable of 4K, it means that the 1080 is really good, because it might be downsampled or something like that. So even if you are shooting or even just delivering in 1080, I think 4K is pretty much the baseline these days. Crazy to say it, right? Let's see here. Shiz is talking about 6K, so I'm guessing you might be the 6K guy. Let's see. 6K is nice, gives you that wiggle room for post-stabilization and stuff without overdoing it. That's true. More resolution means more data that you can sort of let go. Meaning if you need to stabilize something in post and it needs to crop in a little bit and you're going to lose the edges of your stuff, you're not going to lose a whole lot of resolution. In fact, you probably have resolution to spare for that crop if you are shooting in 6K, similar to if you're shooting 4K for 1080. One of those benefits, punching in and stabilization in post. Jason is saying, Shiz was saying, Nikon Z has the shortest flange distance with widest diameter, so theoretically the most flexible ever. Interesting. Okay, so shortest flange distance and widest diameter. So in theory, you should be able to mount anything to it via an adapter, assuming the adapters exist. Interesting. Interesting. Thank you for the explanation on that. Let's see what we got in here. Rob is saying regarding resolution, I'm still fine with 1080p, but my next camera will leapfrog over 4K. All right, so you're going beyond 4K, probably into the 6K realm. So we've got 6Ks in like the S1H. You know, there's 6K available in Super 35 and full frame from Zcam, and Super 35 6K available from Blackmagic. And of course, there's going to be more options coming. That's just the way it goes. So I'm assuming that's what you're looking at. All right, we are still here with 4K in the lead. If you have not voted, make sure you get that in there. Just interesting, but I think this is kind of the trend, the way it's going here. I think 4K is the way. Aram donating $2.99 through Super Chat. Thank you very much. Does Zcam have good tech support? Let me answer that for you. In the traditional sense of tech support, not necessarily, in that you email and get all that kind of stuff going on. But really, their sort of support page is their Facebook group, which they are super active in. They are answering. The CEO himself, Kin Sun Lu, is in there answering questions and handling issues and stuff like that. As of right now, I don't think there's a whole lot of support in the US in terms of physical locations if repairs or replacements need to be done. I haven't had to deal with that yet because my camera's been fine. But sort of their live tech support, if you will, is that Facebook group. So it's an interesting way of doing it, but they are very responsive in there, which is really cool. I haven't run into any issues yet, so I haven't had experience with like a repair or a replacement. So I can't really speak to that, but I don't believe, they're young, they're a small company, they're based in China. Times are tough right now. Just because of everything that's happening in the world, it would be tough for a new company in this market anyway, without all this crazy stuff happening. So give them time, but I think it's going pretty good. But let's see here. Jason was saying, okay, I didn't forget about you, buddy. I know it's a bit off topic, but a C100 II good to learn with a camera, or Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K better? Ooh, that's interesting. A C100 II. So C100 Mark II. C100s are fantastic cameras. But you know what? I might give this to the Blackmagic Pocket 6K at this. And here's why. Just because of the age of the cameras. So the C100 is great. You're gonna learn to go in and mess with the functions. You're gonna learn to set up and expose your image and everything. You're gonna get that with the Blackmagic as well. But what you're going to get in the Blackmagic is the ability to maybe experiment with RAW, experiment with some log. You're not going to get a whole lot of experience with messing with audio because the audio settings are kind of limited in it and not the best. But I would say, if you're trying to learn, you want to learn what is sort of commonplace these days. Now, the C100 is fine. It's going to give you all those basics. But some of the more advanced stuff, if you want to play with, RAW, well, RAW in the sense of Blackmagic RAW, it's that's going to give you more stuff to play around with, to experiment with. But on the same note, a Pocket 4K would do the same thing for you, and could save you a good bit of money. But I believe you were saying that. Well, actually, no, it was Rob who was saying he was going to leapfrog over. But that's my thoughts on that. It gives you more stuff to practice with, if that makes sense. Let's see here. Yeah, I should be saying, I also, by the way, want resolutions between 1080p and 4K. Like GoPro had 2.7K, Blackmagic had 2.5K. Yeah, I figured I would just do the big ones on this resolution vote here, and just put in 4K, 1080, 6K, and then 8K and beyond. I figured that's where it would go. All right, we were just talking about RAW there with Jason, and so I was talking about it, but I want to hear if you guys actually need RAW. So you guys ready for another poll? Well, here, first I'll show you our final results. Actually, they're the same results. They've been the same results the whole way through on this one. So 4K, followed by 1080, followed by 6K. And no one really right now is lusting after 8K or larger. All right, so that wraps up that poll right there. So let's go to another one. Do you need raw recording in your camera? Do you need it? Now, of course, like any features, if they add it in there and, you're going to be like, sure, I'll take it. But my question right now is, do you need it for what you do and your workflows? And then there's the choice of there's different types of raw. So we've got what you call full uncompressed raw. This was if you think of stuff like uncompressed, like red raw and stuff like that. Do you need full? Let me copy this link and get this in here while I'm doing this for you guys. It is in the chat now, guys, if you want to go ahead and take this poll here. But then we have stuff, these versions of compressed RAW that have been coming out. Blackmagic RAW, ProRes RAW, Z RAW in the Z cams. Is that good enough for you? And do you need that? Or do you never actually need RAW? So let me know, get your votes in on that. Link is there in the chat. Yep, link is right there in the chat. So yeah, this one, again, I really want to know, like, is it something that you need? Obviously, if they throw it in, like if it's capable of it, that's great. But like me, like, I'll be honest, people keep asking me about how the Z RAW is versus the B RAW on that. And I haven't used either on either of them because I really don't shoot with RAW and don't need it for the kind of stuff that I'm doing. I usually shoot in like ProRes. But yeah, it's very interesting. So I want to see what you guys think about that. Rob was saying, going past 4K is one part nice to deliver in 4K, one part price per pixel is starting to look really good as 6K becomes the new norm. Yeah, that's interesting. If you go from a standpoint like that, where you're breaking it down by price per pixel, yeah, I mean, we can really go that analytical with these days because, like I said, 6K cameras are starting to pop out faster than I think we ever expected, which is kind of crazy. Rob says, maybe we can do a contest for the next show. Who comes up with the best X is the new Y. This is the new that. And I see Shizwin in there, just like, deity is the new road. Yeah, I mean, that could be interesting. Let's see here. Jason saying, thank you. Of course, Jason, that was a good question. So I hope that answer helped you out. Looks like it may have. She says, do you need a Ferrari? Yeah, see, that's where I was trying to go with this. I started putting these polls together. It's like, would you want this? And of course, the answer would be like, yeah, I want the max. I want the max. I want the max. I want the max. So I tried to scale it back a little bit by saying, all right, what do we really, really need? Road is Newman for the middle class. Luke Newman? What? And Trevor says, I've always wanted RAW. That's what I bought the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera for. For the best colors, artistically speaking, and for editing, you really need RAW. But if you don't, you don't. That's interesting. So Trevor, you've definitely got some interesting use cases with the kind of stuff that you're doing, because you were saying, you need that dynamic range because you're going to be pulling out of certain parts of the sensor or of the image. And you're also saying that, you really actually do want/need RAW. So like I said, this can vary for different people, what they actually need. And so let's see what we've got in here for our results on that voting. We've got a few people who have voted, so if you haven't yet, make sure, here it is right here, get your vote in. Did I just freeze? There we go. I just saw my OBS freeze, so if I was like goofy frozen, sorry about that. But anyway, I was promising you results, so this is where we are right now. Let's go ahead and refresh those results and see what we got. So we got a few votes in here, and right now it is 2-1 on votes. I never need RAW. So a lot of people seem that they don't need it. Of course, if they give it to you, it would be nice to have. Yeah, I just saw it go through in the stream where I froze. But coming in after that is, it looks like I need compressed RAW. So people are happy with having the capabilities of some of these compressed RAW formats like Blackmagic RAW, ProRes RAW, Z RAW, whatever it may be. Canon RAW Lite, I think I would put into that category as well. Rob saying, yeah, LOL, great point to freeze on. Yeah, I'm glad it was like right when I was pointing to the chat that it froze on me. Let me see here. All right, we got it in here. So we got another vote in. Yeah, it looks like I never need RAW is pulling ahead. Like I said, guys, obviously this doesn't mean that if we see a camera with RAW, we're going to poo-poo it, because of course we'll take it. You know, it's always nice to have more tools in the belt, you know, in your toolkit than you may ever need. But for me, I just don't need RAW. Now, if I were shooting something where I really wanted to do, say, like a feature or something that was really going to be shown on large screens, and I really wanted to fine tune the color and make sure I got the absolute best depth between the shadows and the highlights, and really make it, you know, like a film, then I would probably be shooting in RAW, because I want the most absolute control over the image. But for most of the time, for me, shooting in some sort of log format and shooting in a high bitrate ProRes usually gives me enough information that I can do some basic color work and get it right. You know, and even that is probably beyond what my clients are actually asking for, and they probably don't even know that I'm doing that kind of higher end stuff for them. They probably think it just pops out of the camera looking like that. But the fact of the matter is that gives me a lot more control. So for me in particular, I'm also with you guys in that I never need RAW boat, but I will take it, of course. Now, would I go out of my way to add like a separate recorder to, say, this guy, the Z-Cam, so that I can do ProRes RAW? No, ProRes RAW, I really don't have a whole lot of interest in. Will I try Z-RAW on this and B-RAW on that? Yes, I will, just to see how I actually like them, but I haven't worked with them yet, so that's where I am. John Markin just got here. Holla from Ghana. Nice to see you, man. Welcome. Appreciate it, from Ghana. That's awesome. We're hanging out, doing some fun polls and talking about what we want in ideal cameras there. Hopefully my stream health is pretty good. YouTube seems to be a little mad at me too, but we'll see what's up. Let's see what we've got here. Trevor saying, I also come from a photography background where I've always had access to RAW. Yeah, so obviously RAW in image, you know, in stills form is a lot easier to handle. Let's see here. Hey, John, let's see here. Yeah, Rob was saying great point to freeze on. All right, and then Rob says, RAW versus whatever. Rob, I love how you tag me so I can see it, and then you give me in parentheses what it's referring to. Like, your comments are so easy for me to know exactly where we are. I love it. But he says, I think it depends on how much it affects your workflow, weighed against what your minimum standard is to impress a customer. Yes, very much. Like I said, my clients probably don't even know that I'm shooting, you know, ProRes 422 or 422 HQ in a log format and then doing color grading. So it doesn't really make sense for me to go through the extra craziness of doing RAW and delivering something that they're not asking for. Now, like I said, I'm doing this for pay and I'm doing it for work. So, you know, that is, I'm delivering what they need and I'm not going super too far. Now, if I was working on a production, like I said, where they're like, hey, this is for television, we want it recorded in RAW, we really want, you know, to be able to do some detailed color work, then yeah, of course, you know, then I would need RAW because the client is asking for it. But for me in particular, I don't run into it that much. Gear Jones, Derek is in here. Did I miss it? What did you guys come up with? No, Derek, you have not missed it. We've been talking about a couple of Franken camera possibilities. Shiz was pulling features from cameras that he liked, but I've been going through a couple of polls, and we'll get to another one right now so you can join in to see what really matters to you. So we've been talking about resolution, and most recently we were just talking about RAW, and the rest you'll have to go and watch the replay, my friend, or you can text me after the show and I'll fill you in, of course. Shiz is saying, Barbie cam with a few upgrades here and there. Yeah, gosh, the Barbie cam. I love the old digital rev video with that one. Didn't they make Philip Bloom shoot a photo series, or was it a video? I don't remember, but they made him shoot with the Barbie cam, and it was hilarious. Yeah, so Barbie cam. Shiz, you're very easy to please. All he wants is a Barbie cam. Trevor says, I'm curious what percentage of your colleagues are planning to buy the R5. It has a lot of these features on paper. Yes, that is true. The R5 is a very interesting camera coming from Canon. Have we heard about the price on that? I don't know if we have, but I'm considering it, and then if it is way overpriced, I will most likely be waiting for something like the R6, where maybe it has a couple of the features toned down, because I don't need, see, this is a need thing again, that much, and then, you know, save a little bit of money there. Because of course, one thing we're not talking about in this, because we're talking dream cameras, guys, is money. You know, for us, price is, it's raining bills over here, you know, we're fine. And I don't mean like electric bills. I mean like bills you can pay out. So yeah. But anyway, let's go. I wanna keep going with these polls because these are fun. So let me refresh our results on RAW. So we'll take a quick peek at that, guys. So yep, they seem to have been locked in, not much shifting there. Looks like for the most part, you guys never need RAW recording. That is again, need. And then it looks like after that, really compressed RAW formats like BRAW, ProRes RAW, ZRAW, etc. Will do just fine. So let's get to our next live poll. Which one haven't we done? Oh, here we go. I want to talk a little bit about frame rates. So for any of you guys who might do some slow-mo stuff out there. So what high frame rate do you need your ideal camera to have? And I've got a couple ranges here. I went only through ones that are kind of actually physically possible in cameras right now. Obviously, like I said, we would all love to have 12K at 100,000 frames per second. But come on. Let's really look at what we've actually got going on these days. So posting into the chat right now, and you guys can get voting on that one right there. So there you go. Let's see if I freeze again while pointing to it. So here we are. Put a poll for Trevor's R5 question. What did he say? Have you seen the debated camera and flask? Oh, talking about, you know, if people are going to be picking up the R5 or not. I could do that. I might put a poll out there. I'm going to wait until the R5 comes out and then see exactly what's going on when we know final numbers and whatnot. And then maybe I'll see who's interested in picking up the R5 or not. Right now, you know, I'm sure we could all say, yeah, I'd love to have it. And then we might take a look at the price tag and think a little differently. I don't know. But let's see. Yeah, it was Philip talking about the R5. So waiting for hands-on reviews. Rob, yep, you know, we really, you know, paper is one thing, seeing what's up. Are we considering ergonomics at all? Gear Jones, don't jump ahead, man. Don't jump ahead. Ergonomics in the poll that I posted last night on my YouTube channel. There's a link down below. Again, guys, if you haven't done that one, if you're even watching the replay, I'm going to leave that poll up. Ergonomics is one of the options that I put on there for what you prioritize. And a lot of people had selected that. So ergonomics is something in mind, and I do have a poll here about ergonomics that we're going to do just in a little bit, because obviously, you know, specs on paper are one thing, holding a camera, working with it, moving as quickly as you need to, and ease of use is definitely something that is necessary as well. Or something to keep in mind. It's a big one. As a spiritual 1DC successor, might be as much as 6. Okay, so we're speculating on R5 price. Talking about camera and flask. Yep, those guys over there are fantastic. If you haven't joined that show or watched that show, you should. It's fantastic. Every, what are they, Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern time? I forget. But anyway, go to the C47 channel, at the C47, and you'll see it. And with the R5, it's been announced that the first one will be limited release, so most people who are interested are just pre-ordering. Interesting. And oh, he's talking about price. R5 poll for the price. What price do you think it is? Yeah, I should have like a challenge, like guess the number of jelly beans in there. But let's see here. Let's refresh our results here. Oh, this is interesting. So let's take a look. We've got some, again, if you guys haven't voted yet and you want to, go ahead and pop to this link right here and vote in that straw poll. But I want to show you guys here what we've got. This kind of surprises me. What high frame rate do you need your ideal camera to have? And actually 4K 120 is actually pulling out in the lead quite heavily. That's actually more than I thought most people would need. I honestly thought 4K 60 would be what most people would go for, but that's why I put these polls together. You know, that's very interesting. 4K 60 is usually high enough for me. I do have some that'll do 120, and it's, yeah, again, it's a nice thing to have, but I don't have a requirement for it really. But you guys really want those high frame rates. We're talking 1080p 240, and we're talking 4K 120 right now. That's interesting. You know, and of course, if you have those as your high frame rates, the assumption is that you have the various frame rates underneath it. Let's go ahead and refresh, see if we got another one in here. Yeah, okay, so we've got a 4K 60 in there. I promise you, it wasn't me. But yeah, still with that 4K 120 pulling out ahead. So, you know, with 4K becoming what, you know, in our other poll, we had really talked about resolution. You know, we were talking about 4K is really what we're looking for. Let's see if 4K is still what we're looking for. Yep. You know, with that becoming more of our norm, looks like we want something more than just that hyper real 60p. We really want 120 to get some true slow-mo there. So that's pretty cool. Let's see what we got. Yep, 4K 120 is pulling in the lead at the moment. That's, I guess, interesting, but also, I mean, when I really think about it, not unexpected. Like I said, with 4K becoming our normal base resolution that we're looking for, if we really want slow motion beyond just like 50%, you know, you're gonna want that 120 to be able to do that. So that's pretty cool. Where were we? Let's see, we're talking a little bit more about R5. Yeah, so they're talking about, Trevor saying they're putting the S1H, F6, etc. in the crosshairs and everybody else, obviously. So we're still speccing on price of the R5. R5, obviously a camera that is almost the dream camera for everybody, but of course, since this is reality, and in this show, we're just daydreaming about camera specs and all that stuff. And like I said, price doesn't matter. In the real world, especially right now, price does matter. So we've all got our eyes on that R5. But let's see what's going on here. Chiz is saying 4K should be standard, not even a special wish. You know, I was just checking in these polls to see if truly that was the mindset, and it appears that at least with this audience that we have in here right now, that is indeed the case. Like 4K is the baseline format that we're kind of looking for. And then talking about 4K 120, Trevor saying, I'm not so interested in 4K 120. Most audiences can't tell up-res slow motion footage, but in most cases, even good quality 1080 120 will do. Very interesting point. If you're delivering in 1080, then yeah, you can shoot 1080 120 and get your slow-mo. Or he's saying, you know, most audiences for most applications can't tell if you took a 1080 120 and resed it up to match your 4K project, you know, would they really be able to tell? So yeah, interesting. And she says, but I'd take that 240 FPS. Yeah, 240, you know, obviously you're getting it at, you know, like 1080p. I believe this Zcam F6 can do 240 at 1080p. Don't quote me on that. It's my own camera, and their specs confuse me. That's why I did that show last week. So I gotta I gotta check up on that. But yeah, Rob is saying regarding slow-mo, when I answered 4K 120, I assumed that I get the 1080p 242. It is, it's my ideal camera, right? That's true. I shouldn't have pigeonholed you guys to just one choice. I guess I was talking like, what is the max frame rate that you'd want it to have? You know, it's hard to phrase these. I was figuring it out because I was like, yeah, of course. Like if I have the option, I'll just take everything. Like just load it up. You know, like when you're building or on the Apple website building a new computer, of course you just like, hey, this will be fun. You add all the maximum stuff and then you see the price or whatever, but you're still like, that's a pretty badass machine. Yeah, I didn't want to have you guys turn loose and just select absolutely everything on it. But yeah, you're right. It's your ideal camera, you know. You get that 4K 120 and you want 1080p 240 in there. You know what? It's your dream camera, Rob. It's yours. That's happening. Let's see where we're at over here. We had another vote or two come in. So yeah, that 4K 120 is solidly out in the lead. Looks like that is what we want. We want true slow motion beyond just 50% slow-mo in 4K resolution. That's what we are looking for as a group of camera shooting nerds these days. That's awesome. Cool. All right. So yeah, I was interested in that slow-mo stuff. And I have been trying to shoot a little bit more slow-mo and everything as well. I don't use it quite often, but you know, there are instances where it makes sense for me to use it, like I did in one of my recent videos about the studio rebuild. I was sledgehammering down a wall, and of course, you got to do slow-mo for that. So, you know, I did some 120 frames per second 4K on the Zcam F6, and it looked pretty good. I liked it. All right, let's see what we've got. So I want to bring you guys to our last poll here that I have put together. And Gear Jones was mentioning earlier, and it was in my initial poll on YouTube, on the YouTube community tab. Ergonomics, obviously very important. We've been talking sensors and resolutions and frame rates and recording formats and all that. But if you get all that and the thing is a gigantic mess to try and use, obviously that is a really big factor for you. And this is the reason why a lot of times we'll rent cameras before we decide to make a purchase. So we're gonna take a peek here. This is my next and final poll for you guys. Obviously, ergonomics matters. You guys said so in that initial poll, but I wanna know, drilling down into ergonomics, what is the most important aspect of ergonomics that matters to you? Posting it into the chat right now. So we've got weight, size, touchscreen, flippy screen, easily handheld, or the fact that it doesn't need accessories to work, like a monitor, a recorder, a cage, an audio recorder, etc. So I'm really talking about things that are necessary to add on to it to make it do some of its basic functionality. Zcam, there's no monitor. You gotta add a monitor. A lot of cameras, they're like, yeah, I'll do RAW, but only if you attach this recorder to it. So that's what I mean by that doesn't need accessories kind of stuff. So go ahead and one day I'm gonna get this perfect where I'm gonna be like, dude, I need to put like little tape markers so I know like this is this side, this is this side. But anyway, pop in there and go ahead and vote on this final one and let me know when it comes to ergonomics, because I think we can all agree that ergonomics is something that is important and you keep in mind when going to purchase a camera. Let me know what exactly about ergonomics is at the top of your list. Let me take a sip of water here. And we'll take a peek at the chat while you guys are voting on that one. Trevor's saying, I think it's interesting also that even with all these improvements in cameras and features, Arri basically isn't changing anything. So at the end of the day, it's probably the sensor and color science. That's, yeah, it's very interesting. It's a good point. Yeah, and Shiz is backing you up on that, and so is Rob saying, yeah, good point about Arri there. Interesting. I saw some stuff coming in there. She's saying why I appreciated the original Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera and Zcam E1.2. Ergonomics, here's Rob, says, I think it's easy to build out with my own sheet, because I have a lot of my own stuff and don't want to pay for anything that I don't have. That's true. You know, it may change people. You may already have all these accessories and stuff that you kind of need, and so buying the camera that needs a whole bunch of stuff bolted onto it might not be that big of a deal. Trevor says, I'm lazy, but it will always be weight. Aram says, it is easy to adjust ISO and aperture functions on the go when filming, or is it easy to adjust ISO and aperture functions on the go while filming on the Zcam? Find it very easy to adjust this setting on my A7 III. And a super chat donation from Aram again, $3.99. Thank you so much, man. And I'm definitely answering your question. Not that I wouldn't anyway. So ISO and aperture functions. So I don't know about aperture. I believe it is because I use manual lenses. So my aperture is just a twist. But there is on the top a dedicated function button for ISO. So you can just tap that and then you just click, 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 and it'll change your ISO right there without diving into the menus. You can do it right on your sort of main screen. And I believe you can set a function button to do that for aperture as well. So it's really how quickly can you get your fingers to these buttons that are in here and do that, but you can do it with external buttons. So I would say that at least with the flagship series cameras, that it is pretty easy. And if you look at pictures of the other models, you'll see what kind of buttons are there. And again, all the function buttons, there's 4 function buttons on the side of this F6. And then there's some other buttons up on the top, and you can go in and assign those, so you should be able to change that stuff pretty easily on the fly. Shiz is saying, I'd rather have the G9 than the small and light GX9. Interesting. Size and weight is mostly in the lenses anyway. That's true. And so you may think about going back to sensor size. You know, a full frame sensor is going to have some heavier glass. So then your weight's going up, even if your body is small. So it could get crazy. I'm going to go ahead and see what we've got going on here. Whoa, interesting. All right. That is interesting. We are tied across the board here, ladies and gentlemen. We've got a vote in each one. So weight, I'm assuming that, you know, weight, we're talking about lightweight, or size being the smaller size. I didn't put that because, you know, maybe the correct thing for you is a heavy large camera. It could be, you don't know. But weight considerations, size considerations, touchscreen, easily handheld, and then doesn't need accessories, and flippy screen, great to have, but looks like not necessarily at the top of the list for at least this group who's hanging out here in the live chat today. Is not really a deal breaker there. So that's interesting that we are even across the board on all of these. And obviously it's going to be different for each person depending on what you want, but that's interesting. And I think for me, it's going to be weight. I think weight is the biggest thing for me, because I don't mind rigging out a camera, obviously, but everything that I add on there is adding weight. So it's still going to be heavy, but if the camera itself, the body itself started off as being heavy, then it's just going to be heavier. So that's something to consider. So that would be my vote. My vote would probably be for weight to be at the, you know, the very top of what I would look at for ergonomics. Although easily handled, this is a hard one, man, because I want all of them. Easily handheld, you know, you want to be able to operate it and hold it and move it around. You don't want something that's cumbersome. Yeah, dude, this is a hard one. Let me refresh our results. Yep, we're still even across the board on that there. All right. So I think that brings it down to the end there in terms of, or at least I'm out of polls. I'm out of them. You know, I think we did like 5. Yeah, we did 5 in here, so that's pretty good. And you know what? I'll probably actually leave these polls live, and you know, I may pop them into the description down below if you're catching the replay and you want to go ahead and join in and cast your vote. And maybe I'll do a look back at this, you know, a little bit in the future and see if, you know, when we get more data in, sort of where stuff is falling and what we think. So I'll probably put a link to these down in the description below, so you don't have to try and find them in this chat box recording. But Trevor's laughing here. He says, for the old people with tired backs, it's always the weight. Yeah, man, that weight will get you. I shoot a lot of stuff solo, and I'm lugging everything around, and it's it's a huge pain. You know, it'll really get to you, especially as you do get older and all that stuff. She says lame. What did I do? What did I do? Aram, great stream. Thank you. No, thank you, man. You know, you had a few super chats in there. I do real quick want to go ahead. We had a bunch of super chats in today, so I want to thank you guys who are in there. Aram had a few super chats. Shiz was in there. Rob had a super chat, so that was awesome. And guys, like I said, I am keeping track of those super chat donations, and all of those are going towards stuff for the new studio as we're rebuilding it and getting it going. And I have promised that I will take everybody's screen names or whatever name you kind of want within reason. I'll connect with you to figure it out. But I'll get a little plaque made with everybody and put that up on the wall wall in the studio as soon as that is up and going. So that's where the super chats are gonna come into play. And Kyle Markham, because you're awesome, thank you. You're awesome, man. That's fantastic. I appreciate it. And you've made the plaque. That's great. But really, I do appreciate that. Like I said, don't feel obligated to donate. I'm certainly not expecting that. But it was just a cool idea I got actually from, we were talking on camera and Flask and Jem's building his studio. So I totally stole this idea from him. And I think I'm executing it before he did. So it's my idea now. So you tell him that. No, don't tell him that. I'll tell him that. Who cares? I'll tell him on Wednesday when I'm in his chat. But let's see what we got in here. S1H was your dream camera 3 years ago, so I'm super happy with so there you go. Yeah, your dream camera from years ago has now come to fruition and is a real thing. You know, we do have some amazing cameras out there, but let's take a quick run back through. I want to show you guys these poll results and let's see where we are, and we'll do just a little roundup here at the end about what we're looking for in our perfect camera. All right, so in terms of those specs, let's go ahead and refresh this, see if anybody else has voted. Ooh, my, look at that. It did shift just through the time that we were in here. Ergonomics is number 1. Guess we should have spent some more time on that. Resolution coming in at number 2. Sensor size down at the bottom with high frame rates and raw recording capabilities being tied right there for 3rd place. Then we were talking about sensor sizes. So let's refresh our results. Oh, there we go. Super 35, who was in the lead before, pulling ahead. So this is the preferred sensor size for our ideal camera, at least as a group of everyone who is in the chat right now. We're looking at Super 35, followed by full frame over Micro Four Thirds, which actually kind of surprised me personally, but that's interesting. We were talking about resolution. Let's refresh our resolution results. They have remained the same. We have decided as a group in here in this particular live chat that we need 4K. And then 1080 is fine and 6K is the way, with none of us really lusting after 8K or larger. Let's see what we've got in here. Then we were talking frame rates. Let's refresh this and see. We've got a little bit more of an evening out. We've got that 4K 60 I was talking about popping in there, but still overwhelmingly our preference is to be able to get 4K 120, to get you know, more than just a 50% slow motion with 4K 60. We really want some true slow-mo with that 120. Gear Jones donating $1.99 through Super Chat. Thank you, my man, Derek. That is awesome. I appreciate it. And let's move on to our next one here. We were talking about raw recording. Do we need it in here? Looks like our results, we got some new ones in, but it still hasn't changed overall. Most of us do not ever need raw for what we're doing, but we may need something like compressed raw comes in second. So compressed raw being like B-raw, ProRes RAW, Z-raw. Full uncompressed raw, none of us, at least in this particular chat, seem to need that. Wanting it is different, but we were talking need here. And then finally, we were talking ergonomics. Let's refresh our results here. It stays neck and neck across the board with the exception of flippy screen, just being what is the absolute most important. I know this was a hard one because you want them all and I made you pick one, but we're tied across weight, size, touchscreen, easily handheld, and doesn't need a whole bunch of accessories bolted on it to work. So that is a roundup of everything that we had in our polls and chat today. And I appreciate you guys doing that. That was kind of fun doing those polls. I think I may try and integrate that some more. I like that we can chat while you guys are still voting in the background and we can have these results. So that was a pretty fun thing to add into the show today. But anyway, if we've got any last minute questions, get them in there right now because we are at 8 minutes past the hour. And I do have some Saturday chores I need to take care of, and I'm sure you guys would like to be turned loose as well. But thank you so much to all you guys in the chat. Thank you to all you guys who super chatted. That is fantastic. I can't believe it. I appreciate it. We always have a good crowd in here. And if you're catching this for the first time and you want to hang out with this crowd yourself, but you missed it, you know what? There's a way to fix that. Go ahead and subscribe and click that notification bell down there, and you'll be able to hang out with these wonderful people and hang out and take some of my creative, colorful polls and participate in all the great stuff we got coming on this channel. So I think that's about it for today. Shiz is agreeing. Super cool interactive stuff. Yeah, I want to keep doing stuff like this. I think it was a lot of fun. So great stream today, guys. I appreciated it. And you guys take care. Have a good one. And be on the lookout for some new content coming, new edited content coming within the next couple of weeks. And also we've, of course, I'll see you next Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. So you guys take care, and I will see you then. If I can find where I get out of here.